Have you ever held a tiny seed? It looks small, yet within it lies the potential of a towering tree and endless possibilities. These are acacia seeds. Acacia seeds have a hard and impermeable covering that prevents them from absorbing water and germinating easily. To flower, this seed needs to go through an unusual and, to be honest, a very unpleasant process. It has to be eaten by an elephant. Yes, eaten, swallowed whole, carried through its digestive system, and exposed to acid and movement that wear away this hard shell. Only after this process is the seed dropped into new soil without the protection of its old shell, but finally ready to take root and grow. We are like that seed. Life doesn't ask you. It just throws you out of the tree, and without warning, you are eaten by an elephant. We can stay in the hard shell, in our ideas, beliefs, biases that protect but also limit us. Or we can decide to face the unknown, assume vulnerability, and allow ourselves to change. I'm Isabela. I left the north of South America. My story begins in Venezuela, my tree, where despite the crisis and instability of my country, I was living in a bubble, basically a hard shell. But then the seed, which had no control over the wind, was thrown from the tree and eaten by an elephant. And I had to move to the south of the south, to Chile. It was a leap into the unknown, one that made me vulnerable, a step towards a completely different life. Chile and Patagonia, with its freezing climate and wild landscapes, welcomed me. Puerto Natales, a small town known as the end of the world, actually felt like the end of my world. The contrast with my tropical Venezuela was absolute. At first, all I could think about was how to return home, how to go back to the life I had always known. The extreme cold of Patagonia made me long even more for what I had left behind. Puerto Natales, this remote town, made me feel like a seed in an elephant's stomach. Then something changed. As they passed, I started to integrate into the community, and Puerto Natales, with its kind people, showed me that the vulnerability I felt, that sense of not belonging, was actually an opportunity for growth. I thought I had survived the hardest part, but I was still in the elephant's stomach. 2 years later, my parents decided to return to Venezuela. The crisis had not improved, but my family felt the need to be closer to their roots, to the relative we had left behind. I was filled with excitement. The idea of going back home gave me hope. However, upon our return, what I found was a country even more devastated by the crisis. And what I had expected to be a joyful homecoming turned into an experience of disappointment. The conflicts and economic crisis had worsened. Food shortages, power outages, and a lack of opportunities became the new reality. What had once been my home, a place filled with happy memories, that hard and impermeable shell, now felt only as a fond illusion. I realized that vulnerability is not just something you felt when arriving in an unfamiliar place. It is also felt when, after growing, you return to something you once knew, only to find it lost. This period of frustration was difficult to take, but finally, the seed had no shell left, no protection, just a chance to finally grow and germinate. By the time the elephant had done his job, my life took an unexpected turn. The elephant walked from Venezuela to Chile and then to Tanzania, and I arrived here at UWC East Africa. This time without a shell. Vulnerability gave me the chance to grow and gave me the motivation to learn, because I had to adapt to a new educational system and, the hardest part, to a new language. And believe me, this process was full of embarrassing moments. So let me give you an example. One time, one of my friends was sad, and I was concerned. I went up to him and I asked him, "Are you okay?" Immediately, he looked at me and he said, "Are you asking me if I am gay?" The look of confusion on his face was unforgettable, and you can imagine my face as well. I knew I had said something completely different than what I meant. And so were many other situations in which I tried to communicate, but ended up causing more laughter than conversation. But anyways, after all, here I am. As I progressed with my English, I interacted more and more with people from different parts of the world. And I realized that my experiences from Venezuela were not unique. They were part of a global narrative. Many people had experienced the same. I found other seeds like me. We have all been into a huge elephant, and life had removed our hard shells. The conflict, economic crisis, and social struggles I had lived through in Venezuela were also being experienced by people in different parts of the world. Their vulnerabilities and their experiences were even more sensitive than mine. The vulnerability I had felt when facing the unknown, that lack of a shell, became part of a global narrative, a collective fight for justice, freedoms, and human rights. The shell was broken, and it transformed in a tool for connecting with people. The shell I once formed in my tree wasn't there anymore. The ideologies, biases, or stereotypes I once formed back home weren't there anymore. It allowed me to truly connect with others. Because vulnerability is just that. It is allowing yourself to be real, without the protection of ideologies or beliefs that separate you from others. It is being willing to break through your shell, looking for connecting. And yes, sometimes life breaks you by force, and you are eaten by an elephant. But you can always decide what to do with it. You can decide to be attaching to your shell, or you can go through the process, allow yourself to grow, and have a chance to flower. The power of a seed lies not only in its potential to grow, but also in the patience it requires. Perhaps you need to be eaten by an elephant. And just like a seed that must lose its shell to grow, we too need time, space, and the right conditions to thrive. So, losing the shell, vulnerability, is not an obstacle. It is a catalyst for transformation. Today, this is not just about migration or adaptation or are you gay questions. It is about learning to find strength in vulnerability, in the realization that only when we allow ourselves to be fragile and open to change, we can reach our true potential. So, let yourself grow. Because even when life throws you into an elephant's stomach, you have the power to turn that experience into something extraordinary. Thank you.